welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle, and we're the fucking Morning Throners.
Hey y'all, Editor Nelson here. I just want to let everyone know that Kyle has a weird mic issue in this episode, so you hear a buzzing sometimes when he's talking that sounds like this.
I don't know.
I tried to edit it out as much as I could, but sometimes when he was talking, there was no way for me to do it. So just want to let you know, because I thought it was a problem with my headphones when I was listening to the recordings the first time, but it was something going on with his mic. So I've edited it out where I could, but just know that you'll hear that a few times. Thanks. Enjoy the episode.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners. We got Danny on deck. Fuck the Blackwater. Let's get back to Essos, baby. Danny 5. Crazy, man. She only had 5 chapters and Tyrion had like 17.
That is true.
I think the balancing is part of why I don't care. I mean, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Why I don't care so much about her. Like, it's like she kind of just
so
pops back in.
away.
Like, oh, yeah, that's
so
right.
Far
yeah.
away.
But I mean, she's got a cool story.
Yeah. That is jarring because it changes, right? Danny got 10 in the first book, I think, and 5 in the second book, like half as many.
Well, this might not be the last one.
Correct. 5 so far.
I'm not allowed to look ahead anymore.
We're coming towards the end.
I know.
I don't look ahead either, Kyle, if that makes you feel better.
It does.
A little bit longer page-wise chapter than, the Blackwater ones I feel like were like 7-8 page or quick ones, like bouncing around.
It also helped there's stuff happening the whole time.
Yeah. This chapter, Kyle, how do you feel about it?
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Part of it was just the time since the last one. I remember the Warlock stuff and all that, and like I got it. But like, there's a bunch of names getting thrown out there that I was like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be remembering this person. This is a new name.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It was good. I mean, it was kind of weird how it ended. Obviously.
Yeah.
Like,
meeting 2 new cats.
Yeah, that were like immediately on her side, and they were just happened to be there when somebody tried to kill her. Like, I mean, it was kind of weird.
I feel similar to you that this, I think let me just do the math real quick. I guess it was only 13, maybe 13 and a half pages, 14. Could have been like 6 or 7 pages.
It felt long.
Like, the first half of it is just explaining how after the Warlock, Karth doesn't like her anymore. And it's like, okay, like get the fuck on with it. Like, it took so long to get, the point was across.
There's a little bit more than that.
Not really.
But some of it was like, of course they don't like her.
Like, they talk about the magic stuff that's been going on in the area.
Yeah,
like, there's a little bit more than just like,
but that took a paragraph. Like, it ends up going into like the details of what ship she was on and who said no to her and why they said no. Like, I felt like it was written that way because we only got 5 Danny chapters. So let's make these chapters a little bit longer of a story where there's like parts of it where it's all fat and no meat on the bone.
It felt long, is what I would say.
That's just my feeling.
I took notes on it like a month ago, so it's been a while since I actually read it. I listened to it on Audible today. I didn't have that problem, but I don't know. Maybe it goes by quicker when you're listening or something. I don't know. But yeah, we start off with her. She's still in Karth. She is eating a nasty breakfast of cold shrimp and persimmon soup, which just sounds absolutely like a fear factor dish.
Cold shrimp's good.
Cold shrimp soup.
I don't
like shrimp at all, but like, I guess you're right. People eat
cold shrimp's good. People
like persimmon's just like a fruit.
I didn't even pay attention to that line, and you're right that it's kind of gross. But I don't like shrimp either.
People eat shrimp salad and. I do not like shrimp.
Because they're fucking bugs, man. They got too many legs. They got that poop line. Like, get that out of here.
You clean that out. You rip out the legs and you dip it in some cocktail sauce. You should. If you don't clean the shrimp, you're a fool.
Well, cocktail sauce is basically just ketchup, right?
It's with a little bit of like horseradish and some other shit in there. Yeah.
So if you have to dip it in that for it to be good, it's not. That means it's not good.
You don't need to dip it in that. I don't need to dip it in that.
I'm gonna catch heat probably, but all seafood is just eh.
Well, you're
like
crazy.
Seafood except for crab legs, pretty much.
You guys are crazy.
It's all. crabs and lobsters and shrimp are all
Scallops
bottom feeders.
Are good.
They're trash eaters.
That's
man.
okay. They taste good.
Pigs are good. They're trash eaters. But
if I'm being honest, I think it's the texture of most seafood that just gets me. Just like
scallops, salmon, crab.
just like snot. Some of that's snotty.
And just fish in general. Fish is good.
Lobster is just rubber. Get the fuck out of here with lobster.
I don't really care for lobster. That's probably the one that
like to live by the ocean for a little while, and then
people love lobster tail. I don't like. I'd rather have a crab than lobster. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think that's the worst part, right?
Crab more than lobster too.
I was gonna say that's probably the worst part. Is that like that is like the survival food is fish because it's like way easier to get than catching a deer or something like. But I don't like it.
Yeah, so when I start my survival YouTube channel, that's when I'm going to acquire a taste for fish, I'm sure.
All right, here we go. Dany is eating her breakfast, and she's getting dressed to go to the docks. Her handmaid lays out some fancy shit. She wants to wear her Dothraki shit because...
she's over it, right? Like, this town is done with me. I'm done with this town. Like, I'm going to be me.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of what you had mentioned earlier, Kyle, like the people that run into her at the end, they show up just the perfect time. And I think they mentioned like later that like part of the reason is because she's dressed like a savage. They're like, is this the lady we're here for? That's why they didn't just come up and be like, hey, we're here to serve you. But they were like, wait, let's just follow and like watch. Again, it's kind of weird and we'll get to it. But like I think she mentions later at one point, like it's because of the way I was dressed had something to do with probably why they were skeptical. Like I didn't look royal or something.
I may regret saying this in like 4 chapters, but another piece of fat that's going into Jeff's, that this dude with the brass, man, following him around for like 10 minutes, like get out of here.
That conversation was crazy.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Like get out of here, dude. Like 30 to like basically free. Like come on, get the fuck out of here. I didn't care for that guy at all.
So another cool thing about her getting ready is they braid her hair Dothraki style, and like they want to give her a bell, and she's like, "I didn't do anything," and they're like, "Yeah, you did. You fucked up.
You killed the warlocks. You beat the warlock, the magi.
You're on the frag list. You're on the frag count." And she's like, Drogon's on the frag count, not me.
Well, she didn't say it out loud, but she needs to like start taking credit for these, right? She's the mother of dragons. Like they're hers.
She wants to be a badass. Yeah.
They should be extensions of her, essentially.
You gotta hype yourself up in some spots. I mean, this is her handmaids, but yeah, to everyone like outside, she's got to be like, yeah, I did. Well,
she's gonna be using these things to kill people for a while if they get big, right? Like she needs to not be like, well, they're king now. They killed everybody.
Well, it's a way to deny
separate yourself from it.
I didn't burn all
plausible
those people
deniability.
It was Drogon.
I didn't tell him to do it.
It wasn't me. It was Drogon.
Yeah. So she starts walking down or riding down, and it's kind of funny how Karth is set up. I don't know if it was mentioned like this before. Like they're obviously in like the lavish parts of it, and then as they walk down, it gets more normal and normal, right? And poorer and poorer. And the Karth, the greatest city that ever lived. I don't know if it's given off the kind of feeling that there's any bad parts to it or poor parts. And here they are, and they don't care for Dany at all.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we're supposed to get, right? Like everything we've heard up to this point is like, this is perfect. They're like, this is just the most perfect city ever.
Boobies out, houses are all white.
There's nothing bad, but that's just been what they've shown. That's what they're showing Dany, right? They want her to think this. They're all just trying to play their games with her.
Yeah, they only showed her the good side of town. Yeah,
because they're just trying to play games with her. Yeah, they want something. So she leaves Ricardo to guard the dragons, and she takes Jogo and Aggo with her to the waterfront along with Jorah.
Front, back, and side.
Yeah, so we kind of like where we ended off the last chapter was with Kyle was like, what's Dany doing next? Because her going into the House of the Undying, she's thinking like, this is my last option. This is the only thing, like my only chance left. So we're like, hey, Kyle, what's Dany going to do next? And it's kind of what she's saying here. Is like, I have nothing to do next. I've been running my entire life, and the reason I'm going to the docks right now is just because I have to run again. Exactly. And she gets into her conversation with Zaro.
He tries to marry her again. She tries to get ships out of him. He wants a dragon. She's like, no fucking way. He said, well, what about more ships? And she said, well, there's only 3 dragons. I want 1/3 of the boats in the world.
Yeah,
which I think is a fair trade, right?
I thought that point was great by her. And the fact that Zara was like, no, it doesn't make, like, okay, just because you don't own 1/3 of the ships, like, she's got a good point. Like,
it makes more sense than 10 ships or whatever he was offering her, right?
That's not how value works, though. Like,
it's not, but
one of, like, you know, a super nice car.
It is.
It's still not worth
I guess,
or one of three. It's not worth a third of the rest of the cars, right?
That brand,
It depends on how you divvy it up. Like if I say all the cars in the world, yes, you could take a third. You could take like the third worst and be like, yeah, you get those ones. But I think like the assumption here is you average them out.
I don't think that's the way to think about it. But I think to Zaro's point of supply and demand is you need this ship. He doesn't really need the dragon. Like I'm sure he'd want the dragon and it would help him do more stuff, but he seems to be doing pretty good. Like I don't need your dragon. I just want your dragon to make me more powerful. You need this ship or you might die walking across the Red Waste. So your demand is a lot higher for the ship than my demand is for your dragon. I just want it.
Yeah, to that point, if Dany was going to go down that route, she should auction. Right, because like it's got to be worth more than 10 ships. If you got people auctioning for a dragon, she's gonna walk away with a ton of ships.
Just think about what they were talking about for the egg, like what an egg could get her.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I was thinking before that when she's talking about Zaro, she's thinking that Zaro was saying like Pyat Pri is gathering all the surviving warlocks to do some bad shit.
Anybody left?
Yeah,
and there's some weird shit going on.
And Danny's like, you told me the warlocks don't have any powers, basically. He's like, that's how it was, but I'm not so sure anymore. And he goes through this like, list of like weird ass shit.
Your dragons back.
I have the list here. I can read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Glass candles are burning in Urathon Nightwalker.
Yeah, in the house of Urathon Nightwalker. Yeah, whatever the fuck that means.
Ghost grass is growing. Phantom tortoises are delivering messages to houses with no windows.
On Warlock's Way.
On Warlock's Way.
Warlock's Way.
And rats are chewing off their own tails.
Yep.
Question.
Yes.
Is this where the turtles come from in Elden? Oh, you didn't play Elden Ring enough.
I did.
Just another game he never beat. Just another game.
I was wondering when I reread this chapter. I was like, Phantom Turtles is such a weird thing to like show up in Elden Ring and in this thing. I was like,
somebody that's played Bloodborne and all the other ones before George needs to let us know if there were ghost turtles in them.
Yeah, because I never played anything except for any of those games except for
Dark Souls, any of them.
Yeah. The next one is the wife of Mathos Malwarin, who once mocked a warlock's drab, has gone mad and wears no clothes. So like this guy's
wife like drab garb or something. Like she made fun of his clothes and now she can't wear clothes.
Yeah. Now she won't wear any clothes. This guy we actually have heard of before. I think he is one of the people that Dany bribed. He was on the Pureborn. She bribes him and then he just like says no anyway. So like she pays him money to like be like, yes, we'll help you. And then he just says no when she comes to help anyway.
This Mathos dude?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then she goes into this blind Sebastian dude. So I didn't know if that's...
Yeah. What's that?
He's the eater of eyes and he can see again.
At least it's rumored he can see again.
Yeah.
So weird shit's going on. That's when they talk about the marriage again. She basically was like, fuck off. And then he gets super mean to her.
Yep. He's just like,
we saw that dude climb the ladder before. So, I mean, we knew stuff was amping up, I guess.
Weird shit was happening.
Along that, when Quaithe says something about glass candles then too. She's like, this guy couldn't even light a glass candle. And now he's climbing the fiery ladder. Here she says the glass candles are burning in the house of Urathon Nightwalker. So again, we don't know what that means, but she's basically saying this guy couldn't do that before. Now he's doing this. Like,
glass candle is a light bulb.
I don't know, but like it's along the lines of it's like pointing to the same. I take this as like kind of the same dragon thing, like where like dragons are making
for sure.
some of the stuff come back. But it's like, is it that though? Because why is this now? Dragons have been back the entire time Dany's been in Karth. Why is like?
I mean, they're getting bigger and stronger, right? Like, I would feel like that power would slowly come back. It's not like a light switch on and off, right? It's got to build some momentum.
Yeah.
So now things are
okay.
They're getting bigger. Dragons are growing. The power is growing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
People, speaking of dragons and them growing, people are now viewing them a little bit differently after they burned Drogon, burned the warlocks out of the fucking House of the Undying. They remember that they're pretty dangerous. They can kill us.
I don't know. We're kind of jumping around a little bit here. I don't know exactly where we're at, but there's a part where she's saying like, I don't know exactly where to go either, right? So she has a few suggestions. Jorah says,
I mean, it's next. We're before you get there, it just kind of talks about the dangerousness of now how the people of Karth and the higher ups of Karth. So
the Tourmaline Brotherhood, the Spicers.
The Brotherhood wants to expel her. The Spicers want to kill her, and Zaro, for now at least, kept a 13 to like not turn their back on her yet, but I'm sure soon they're gonna be like fuck her too.
Yeah. Another just really small thing, when they're talking about the number of ships, Zaro says like, oh, my group has 1,000, and she's like, oh, what about the other two groups? And he's like, oh, they're insignificant. And then one of the other two groups has more than him.
They had a huge number. It didn't make sense at all. It went from like, oh, I guess I could give you like 100. You're like, oh, well, they have like 30,000. It said. I was like, what the fuck?
I don't think so.
I'll try and find what the number was.
I think she says like,
it
how
was
many
unreal.
does the 13 have? And he says 1,000. And she's like, what about the Spicers and the Tourmaline Brotherhood? And he's like, oh, that's insignificant. And she's like, well, tell me anyway. And he's like, one of them is 800 and the other one's like 1,200. And I'm like, well, one of them is like, it averages to the same as yours.
All right, I have it right here. He owns 83, okay? And your colleagues in the 13. Among us all, perhaps 1,000. Mm-hmm. And the Spicers and the Tourmaline Brotherhood, they're trifling fleets. 12 or 1,300 for the Spicers, no more than 800 for the Brotherhood. That's a lot of fucking ships.
That's what I'm saying. He says trifling.
Well, and he said perhaps 1,000, which makes it sound like it's probably like 750, and he's like, upgrading, like, give or take.
He's like, oh, they're trifling. They're trifling fleets. They're nothing. Maybe like this much more than I have.
Yeah. To Nelson's point, they were talking about she doesn't know where to actually go. And Jorah's like, let's go further east. And then she could just tell that her Dothraki people are stuck being indoors and they just want to get out and ride and take over. So they probably want to go back to the grass sea.
They're going to love a boat.
And they don't want to get on a boat. That's for sure.
She wants to go back to that burned up city of bones that they were in, like where they found like the peach tree, right?
Yeah.
She wants to just go back there and chill there till the dragons are bigger. They're like, we had like fruit, like they found like dates and stuff, right? There was like a well. They're like, let's just go back and chill at that unoccupied city. That's kind of what Dany wants to do, but she knows it's like the worst of the plans.
Did she say that? Did I miss it?
Yeah, she did say that.
She calls it Vase Toloro. I don't know if we've ever.
And she just says till her dragons grew great and strong, but her heart's full of doubts and she knows it's wrong. So then I think they really start talking about the currency, the rate for trading a ship to a dragon. We kind of hit on that.
Yep.
We get the numbers of what they actually have. She basically says fuck off.
Yep.
Basically says fuck off, and then
this is the 1/3 of the ships thing. Yeah. we're bouncing around, but they say how many are there in the entire world? After like the how many do you have? This is like what Jeff was saying earlier. The entire world. She's like, okay, well that's a third of them. Then you can get a dragon. And like we mentioned, we went through that earlier. He says fuck off. But yeah, now we're here.
Pa.
I mean, this is a dramatic city. These guys cry at everything, right? Like, if you're not weeping, you're not.
He was crying here. He cries in a second.
Exactly.
I don't even know why he cries.
She wants nothing to do with him. It's fake crying, probably.
He starts crying and tells her that he warned her not to go into the House of the Undying. He says she is as mad as Mathos Malwaren's wife after coming out, who's the woman who won't wear any clothes. And he laughed at the notion. Yep. And then that was the last time Dany saw him. Mm-hmm. Ever since she was just getting messages like, you're gone, get out, give me
my shit back. Yeah, what a bitch.
That's pretty petty.
Yeah. So
now she didn't even do that from the people that turned her down, She wasn't like, give me my money back.
She, like we said, Mathos, she gave this guy a bribe and he was just like, sorry, just kidding, I took your money. She didn't demand that back. She actually said, like, I should demand that back to Jorah, I think, but I don't think she actually did.
So then she gets into talking to Jorah. Well, it's not Jorah yet, but she does talk to Jorah about what she saw in the Warlock house there.
Yeah, at first she's just thinking about it. She thinks about the 3 treasons. One's for blood, one's for gold, and one's for love.
And if they already happened.
She thinks Miri, who murdered Khal Drogo and their unborn son,
was blood.
Must have been the one for blood.
Okay.
Which I guess makes sense.
Could Pri be for gold?
And yeah, she wonders if Pyatt and Zaro are 2 and 3. But she's like, probably
seems
not.
Too easy.
But Pyatt didn't want gold and Zaro never actually loved her.
He wanted a dragon, exactly. We kind of already heard that we never got confirmation. We heard like Zaro has like a lot of like very handsome like naked boys in his house a lot, so like kind of suspicions of his sexuality. So which is even more like he doesn't love me. He's in it for the dragon.
So then she does start talking to Jorah about the 3-headed dragon. I think it's the most that they talk about.
Yeah, well, she's thinking about all the 3. Because they called her Child of 3, Daughter of Death, Slayer of Lies, Bride of Fire. So many 3s, 3 fires, 3 mounts, 3 treasons. And then she says the dragon has 3 heads and asks Jorah if he knows what that means. He's like, duh, everyone knows what that means.
Yeah, your fucking
your
sigil.
sigil.
It's on your chest. Look down one time.
Well, she doesn't have that, yeah. But she needs to get some of that. That's probably what he's thinking. He's like, we need to get you an actual shirt one time.
But so we get a little bit of a history lesson, Kyle. I don't know if we've gotten this before.
She says there's no such thing as an actual three-headed dragon. And then we learn why their sigil is a three-headed dragon, right? Like, Davos' sigil is a ship with an onion because he sailed a ship with onions in it one time. So we find out why the Targaryen sigil is a three-headed dragon.
I mean, it's the Aegon and his sisters, right?
Mm-hmm. Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters.
Egg is not Aegon.
There's a lot of Aegons through the history.
Okay, well that's kind of why I don't like this part, because I was so fucking confused immediately.
This is one.
Yeah, this is Aegon the Conqueror. This is Big Dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
He took over Westeros. The one that all the other Aegons are named after.
What number is Egg? It's like the phrase, I guess is what you're saying, but
Egg's actually 5, which you're right. It's super confusing when there are 5 Aegons.
like I said, it's like the phrase. So it's like 17 Walters, 43 Walters, however many it is.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I thought when you were saying phrase, I thought you meant like PHAR. How do you spell phrase? You know what I mean? That word?
Oh, okay,
like
yeah.
a turn of phrase.
SE is what you're saying.
Not phrase.
Finish your spell.
House. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I have a quote here, but it might be from the last chapter, the actual vision. I don't know if she thinks it in this book, or in this part.
Which vision? There was a couple.
The one she's talking about with the three-headed dragon. Will you make a song for him? The woman asked.
So, yeah, she talks about seeing her brother Rhaegar. His is a song of ice and fire. My brother said, I'm certain it was my brother, not Viserys. Rhaegar, he had a harp with silver strings. And Jorah's like, oh, I did see that harp before. And then she continues on. She said there was a woman in a bed with babe at her breast. My brother said the babe was the prince that was promised and told her to name him Aegon. And then Jorah confirmed Prince Aegon was Rhaegar's heir by Elia of Dorne. But if he was this prince that was promised, the promise was broken along with his skull when the Lannisters dashed his head against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
How did she not know that already?
Well, she says, I remember.
Okay.
They murdered Rhaegar's daughter as well, the little princess Rhaenys. She was named like Aegon's sister. There was no Visenya, but he said the dragon has 3 heads. What is the Song of Ice and Fire? And Jorah goes, it's no song I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So she just like, fuck, I went to this place to try and figure out what to do, and now I have more questions than ever.
Yeah. Kyle, thoughts on this?
Yeah, like I don't know how to piece a lot of this together, because I definitely don't know her whole lineage. Maybe I could go look at the tree a little bit better and figure out some of where this might have happened in the past. Or
well, I think what's happening in this part, right, is it's taking some history that we've heard of throughout the other chapters of the past 2 books, right? Rhaegar's wife and son got killed, and Rhaegar's son's head got smashed against the wall. And now it's tying that into the vision that Dany had in the last chapter, which I think even you at that point were like, this probably makes sense if it's Rhaegar. If it's not, because I think at the time she's like, oh, this isn't Viserys. Like, I think even you said it's Rhaegar. So now it's kind of being like, okay, it's Rhaegar, and now the kid he was holding is Aegon, who's the kid whose head got smashed against the wall. But in the vision, they're talking about like, oh, this kid's going to be a prophecy. 3 heads of the dragon. I
mean, it kind of matches her own, right? Like, she had this kid that was supposed to be the one that mounts the world, and
prophesized, super kid.
And then the kid ended up dead pretty early.
Exactly. So I think that's just like a general theme, is like people are trying to follow prophecy, and just like the thing that George does is what people do for the prophecy they know about is more important than the prophecy, right? If that makes any sense.
Nelson went into a dissertation about prophecies with George, probably in the spoiler section, but
yeah, there's like he likes to play with like when people learn about prophecies, the impact that has is way more important than like the actual prophecy. And like the prophecy might happen 1,000 years later or something like that, but it's fucking up this person's life because they think it impacts them, type of thing.
Well, that's the problem with prophecies, right?
Exactly. Or the other problem is like they're so vague that you can always.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You can apply them to anything, and you can never be sure when they're complete.
Yeah, exactly.
So she gets down to the waterfront now. Waterfront's pretty dope. Big market, lot going on. Pretty grand. Dios.
Kyle, read that quote. Karth was one of the world's greatest ports.
Karth was one of the world's greatest ports. Its great sheltered harbor, a riot of color and clangor and strange smells. Wine sinks, warehouses, and gaming dens line the streets, cheek by jowl with cheap brothels and the temples of peculiar gods. Cut purses, cutthroats, spell sellers, and money changers mingled with every crowd. The waterfront was one great marketplace where the buying and selling went on all day and all night, and goods might be had for a fraction of what they cost at the bazaar, if a man did not ask where they came from. Wizened old women bent like hunchbacks sold flavored waters and goat's milk from glazed ceramic jugs strapped to their shoulders. Seamen from 100 nations wandered amongst the stalls, drinking spiced liquors and trading jokes in queer-sounding tongues. The air smelled of salt and frying fish, of hot tar and honey, of incense and oil and sperm.
Yep. Awesome place.
A lot going on. People Agog stopping and getting a little honey rat on his way through.
Mm-hmm.
Can't pass up the honey rat.
Jogo got some cherries.
All
kinds of stuff for sale.
Shit. Some
Daggers,
virgin
squid,
milk.
onyx, a magical elixir made of virgin's milk and shade of the evening, which is the stuff that the warlocks drink. That's a fucking drink and a half right there. Dragon's eggs, which Danny thought looked strangely like painted rocks, saffron, frankincense, pepper, wine, sour leaf, striped hides, and slaves.
All right. So the next part, she's about to be like, all right, like I'm going to go talk to a captain and try and get us passage out of here for all 100 of us and all of our horses and let's go somewhere. And she leaves Ago and Jago, and her and Jorah take off and basically get turned down by a bunch of different names of ships and people. Some people are nice to her. Some people laugh at her.
Right before they do that, they see a basilisk tearing apart a big red dog.
Yeah, which is a snake, right? Is it like Harry Potter?
I looked it up. In European legend, a basilisk is a legendary reptile reputed to be a serpent king who can cause death with a single glance. So that's right out of Harry Potter.
Well, that's
right?
Harry Potter.
Well, Harry Potter is a British author.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's a snake. I don't know if this basilisk had legs, but
it was weird because it's tearing. It just sounded weird the way it was tearing a dog to
ripping
pieces.
a dog in front of everybody.
How I would think you would describe a snake attacking a dog, but
I mean, I guess nobody really wanted to fuck around with it. If you look it in the eye, you're dead.
I'll run through these ships. I know Jeff doesn't want to linger. The captain of the Ardent Friend laughed when he heard she wanted passage. The Lyseni captain of the Trumpeteer. When she said who she was, he's like, he didn't buy it, and he's like, sure, I'm Tywin Lannister, and I should gold every night.
Hey, call back to that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, even people in Karth know that Tywin Lannister shit's gold. The cargo master of the Mirish galley, Silken Spirit, told her that dragons are too dangerous at sea. Lord Fargo's belly would risk dragons, but not the Dothraki. Two brother captains of sister ships, Quicksilver and Greyhound, were sympathetic, but their price was too high. Pinch Bottom Pedo and the Slow-Eyed Maid were too small. Bravo was bound for the Jade Sea, and Magister Mon-Olo didn't even look seaworthy. I think that's all of them.
Yep. This is when Jorah alerts her. He's like, don't fucking look, but there's people following us.
Uh-oh. Let's get into this brass.
And he's like, grabs her, and he's like, don't look.
Yeah, the brass seller.
Let's go look at this mirror for half an hour.
Because Jorah is trying to get their little reflection play going on, but they ended up getting into a conversation they didn't bargain for.
Oh my God.
None of us bargained for. We didn't deserve this. What did we do?
Oh, what a great brass mirror. Only you can have it, Khaleesi. I'll give it to you for 30 honors.
What's an honor worth?
It's in Karth. We don't know the conversion for that.
Okay.
I only got the Westerosi conversions over here.
30 honors. Oh wait, 25. Okay, 20 for you. Oh wait, I need one. Just give me one honor. Like, shut the fuck up, guy.
The whole time the whole begging is going on. They're holding up this platter, and like Danny's insulting it, and Jorah's like tilting it so they can see stuff. She sees a fat brown man and an older man with a staff. Jorah's suspicious, right? He's super suspicious right away.
Well, he's like, they've been following us since we talked to the twins, right? The brothers?
Yep.
Yeah.
One's got a sword.
One's old and looks like he might be from Westeros, and one must be 20 stones. That's 280 pounds. It's my boy.
Big
that's
guy.
the short one. That's the short one. It's 280.
Yeah. Short and
my
fat.
boy Belwas. Yeah.
And he's only got an iron shirt on, right? He's got a weird shirt.
I think he's wearing a tiny little vest. Yeah.
She thinks to herself at some point, I think it's around this mess, that why would these people have traveled so far and they're following me? Type of deal. She remembers the usurper
price on her head.
putting the price on her head. So
it's been tried already.
It's been done.
Not a bad place to go.
And then something happens. They turn around, and she finally gets an actual like look at him.
The brown man was near as white as he'd looked in the platter, with a gleaming bald head and the smooth cheeks of a eunuch. A long, curving arack was thrust through the sweat-stained yellow silk of his belly band. Above the silk, he was naked but for an absurdly tiny iron-studded vest. Old scarves crisscrossed his tree-trunk arms, huge chest, and massive belly, pale against his nut-brown skin. The other man wore a traveler's cloak of undyed wool, the hood thrown back. Long white hair fell to his shoulders, and a silky white beard covered the lower half of his face. He leaned his weight on a hard wood staff as tall as he was. Only fools would stare so openly if they meant me harm.
Yeah, they're not really hiding. Jorah is pretty much what she's thinking here.
Yeah.
So we finally meet Belwas,
My boy.
who I had heard about from Nelson a long time ago, and I was not expecting this dude. And
You heard about him because Nelson is unoriginal?
I guess we can kind of fill in some of that backstory. It's too long and not important for this, but like, so I know Nelson has an obsession with dwarves, and he made a dwarf character for a D&D campaign.
Yep.
And he named it fucking Gimlich Belwas,
Yes.
which still is not a name that I would pick.
Gimlich, because Gimli and Peter Dinklage, I combined Gim and Dinklage for Gimlich.
So he took a dwarf race name and a little person's name.
Yep. And mushed them
And
together.
combined them together.
And then because Gimleon, like if you combine Gimli and Tyrion, that's just even worse. So I just did Gimlich and then Belwas, just because, come on,
Tyri.
Belwas is the best for the
Like
last
Gimli
name.
and Tyrion. Tyri?
Tyrli, you could do that.
Tyri.
That's
Yeah,
a
just
dwarf.
Tyri.
That's definitely like a dwarf name from Lord of the Rings.
Just unoriginal. Basically, Nelson stole every piece of his
Combining
name.
things is original.
No, it's not.
But then we meet Belwas here, who is like this massive dude, right? Like he's not.
Big
I
guy.
guess he is shortish.
He's
but
not tall, but I'm. What does Danny say? Let's say it in a different in a different system, so no one knows actually how fat I am. Even though I
Stone.
already said the conversion. Yeah, 8 stone.
You're like
I'm right up there with Belwas. I'm pushing
you think
280.
the Irish listener's not going to know what a stone is?
That's probably true.
what is one stone?
Do they still use that?
I feel like they say
If
that.
I can find where I had the conversion.
I mean, you just said it was 280, right?
20 stone is 280.
So 14
That's right. 14.
pounds, and then you're like 250.
I'm like 270. 265, 270.
I was going to say, why don't you just say 20 stone?
So you're basically strong Belwas. What do you mean?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Yeah, I'm right up there with my boy.
At least you're not 5'6".
And I got some scars. Not as many scars as Belwas, but I got some scars.
You got some
I've been
shit
through the ringer.
scars.
Probably
You got
not from
nothing.
his cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But
So this guy is just hounding her to buy this fucking thing. She's like, all right, fuck it. Like, give him 2 honors and take that thing with us.
Go
And-
away.
Another man comes up. I think she calls him a jeweler. A Carthene stepped into her path. Mother of dragons for you. And it's this
Yeah.
jewel box that he puts into her face. And she's like, oh my God, this is great. I'm going to sell this and that'll make me some money.
and this is cool. Like, think about if somebody came up and did this to Tyrion, right? Would he just take this box?
I was going to say it was pretty dumb, especially after she's literally
He'd
worried these
probably
two dudes
be
are out
like-
here trying to kill her.
Yeah.
And now here's somebody else that just comes out of nowhere and hands her something. And she's like, oh,
But I think it shows, like, in Karth, that's what she's been doing. Is just getting
Yeah,
gifts
true.
when she got here. So it's just
Yeah.
like, she's just in this, like, ooh, yeah, like, kind of like saying, ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Like, that's this guy. Like, hey,
Oh,
here's this
I'll
box.
jump in
She's
this
like,
way,
ooh,
Van.
I'll open this thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, Tyrion would be like, all right, Pod, like, throw it in the back or
He'd
something.
be like, Braun, open that shit. Or, you know what I mean? Or like, Pod, check that out. Yeah. Like,
the Shagger.
yeah, he'd be
And some
skeptical.
fucking scorpion thing pops out of it and dripping venom with a weird face
Scarab. Yeah.
and could have killed her.
Well, it's a manicore.
Oh, is that what it is, Kyle? I was hoping you were gonna know what this was from D&D because I've like looked this up and like it's like a weird thing that I can't.
Isn't it
remember
like a
straight.
lion scorpion?
It's like it's like a scorpion with like a person's face and it's like one of those types of animals, but it's like a size of a
Malign,
scorpion.
black-faced, almost human, and an arched tail dripping venom.
Yeah, it's like a scorpion's body and tail, but a human face. I think I think that Kyle's right. There's other animal pieces in it too, but it's like when I think of that, I think of like
it's
a
the head of a
centaur.
man, body of a lion, tail of a dragon or scorpion.
But it's tiny. This thing's tiny.
I mean, everything's to scale. What are you talking about?
I don't know what to tell you, man. That's what it is in history. So I can't say that it is exactly the same in this, but
Whatever it is, it's scary.
when it looked fake at first, right? It just looked like a jewel.
I thought it was in the box. She reached inside the box.
She said within was a glittering green scarab carved from onyx and emerald.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The scarab unfolded with a hiss.
Oh, so she thought it was like a little, like, gotcha, like jewel bug. And then it turned out to be a real bug. It's pretty badass. The thing looks weird in the show, but it looks more like just a scorpion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably like kind of the
It's got like a weird
idea.
like pattern on like the tail that makes it kind of look like eyes, but it's not like a weird mythical.
It's a scorpion. But what's his name comes up, hits it with his staff, which...
Well, no, it starts fucking her up. Like, I don't know if we got into that. Like, she's like seeing blinding pain, right?
No, he hits it with the staff.
Well, that's the staff. Yeah.
He hits her hand. He kills the thing and hits her hand.
Yeah. Danny caught a glimpse of a malign black face, almost human, and an arched tail dripping venom. And then the box flew from her hand in pieces, turning end over end. Yeah. And that's when the sudden pain twisted her fingers.
You're right. I didn't put that together in my read. Yeah. Sorry.
So the guy hits her hand, and then her blood riders come. Jorah's.
They're on these guys. Yeah.
They're like fighting now. Like he hits Belwas over the head with the bronze platter.
Did we say that what this guy says to her when he gives her this box?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so he's we've heard about these people, these like assassins in Karth, right? Who always say like
too nice.
Called the sorrowful men. They're called the sorrowful men. They always whisper, "I'm so sorry" before they kill somebody. Danny brings that up here. When everything kind of gets like calmed down a little bit, Jorah, who grabs who? Somebody's got each of them, right?
Jorah's got Belwas.
Jorah hit Belwas over the head with the platter. Jogo seized his round shoulders. Aggo kicked his staff away.
Gets a dagger to his neck.
Yeah.
Whip cracks over their head.
Yeah. And Danny's like, they were defending me. The Kartheen guy, he was one of the sorrowful men. Like, I think she tells him that.
Yep.
The brass guy's freaking out and they're like, did you get stung? And he's like, no, but it touched me. And he's like,
piss myself.
They give him some money and he's finally gone. Yeah.
So then we get the introductions. Old guy introduced
himself
as Artson, but the fat guy's been calling him Belwas.
No.
Belwas has been calling him Whitebeard.
Oh, sorry. And Belwas is a guy from the Marine fighting pits who...
He's a gladiator.
He's a gladiator. He lets the person cut him once before he kills them. And he's like, I killed many of you horse boys.
Yeah, he's talking shit funny to Aggo and Jogo.
He's pretty funny.
I feel like he's kind of like a comedic relief type, kind of like Dolores said is with John.
Yeah.
He's kind of like that with Danny.
Yeah.
Well, then Aggo's like, well, I've never killed somebody as fat as you, but I'm about to.
Yeah, right? They're talking shit to each other.
Yeah. So, and then, we get into why they're here. Right, and there's a fat man
from Pentos.
Fat man that smelled good sent him here because they need her and her dragons. And she's like, "Wait, what? From Pentos, Illyrio?"
And Whitebeard confirms. So this guy was speaking Valyrian, and now he's speaking Common Tongue, which is like Westerosi.
Right.
Yep.
And she's like, all right, like, where the fuck are you from? Are you from Westeros? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I was born on Dornish Marches, was once a squire for Lord Swan, and now I'm a squire for Belwas. And she's like, well, aren't you a little fucking old to be a squire?
Yeah. Jorah asked that, yeah.
And then he calls Jorah by name. And he's like, no, sorry, my liege, Lord Mormont. He's like, what the fuck? Like, how do you know who I am? But I'm not Lord Mormont. I'm a traitor.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, some of this could have came from Illyrio, right? Like, I don't know why he's so confused that they would know who he is as well. They were sent here to find her.
He does say, I've seen you fight once or twice. He says, I saw you on horse Jaime Lannister at Lannisport and at Pike as well.
I know, but why would Jorah be like, he's like, how do you fucking know me?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, you're looking for this blonde girl. She's going to be with a knight named Jorah over there. Like,
yeah, we skimmed over and they're like, we apologize if we scared you. We were expecting someone more regal or more. Mm-hmm. And she finishes regal for him, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know if we knew this. He unhorsed Jaime Lannister. I feel like we knew he was at a tourney.
No. He near unhorsed the Kingslayer.
Oh, near unhorsed. Huh. I gotta update my notes. I had him unhorsed.
Yeah, well, you near unhorsed. Yep.
You don't read well.
I don't read good. I mean, still, Jaime's badass. Like top tier knight.
Somebody else is already beating him. We've heard of him getting beat before.
Loras, right?
I'm just saying, Jorah's got some. That's like a good.
Well, Jorah's no slouch. We know Jorah's no slouch. All right. so she's like, basically, Illyria wants her and her dragons because the realm is bleeding. The usurper Robert is dead. Let's get the fuck back to Pentos. We got work to do.
There's 4 kings, and you need to come in and wipe up the mess. Now's your time, pretty much. Like,
time to answer the call.
I mean, he's got a point, though. Like, this is as good a time as any to fight for power, right? There's already a massive struggle going on. You slide in. You have an opportunity while the forces are split rather than united, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Dany then says, I have 3 dragons and 100 in my Khalasar. And like,
I mean, she doesn't have enough people. I agree. I'm not saying that, but this is
win Westeros right now.
Well, hold on. I think it's more so like, hey, you can't just take me and these 3. Like, I got 100 other people and horses, and they're like, oh, don't worry, we have 3 ships for you. It's perfect.
Sure, that's what they're saying here. I was just pointing out to the whole like, yeah, now we can go win the day. I'm still like, hold on, there's some things that have to happen first. Yeah. But yeah, so they have 3 ships: Saludion, Summer Sun, and Joso's Prank. But they don't keep those names very long.
3 ships, perfect. I'll rename them.
Gotta make them the 3-headed dragon, baby. Gotta fulfill this prophecy.
We were talking during the Blackwater about how there were ships that were named like Piety and Devotion and stuff like that, even though Stannis is like very anti Faith of the Seven now because he had taken these ships from a pious dude.
And they were already Targaryen ship names too. That
I mean, Saludion, Summer Sun, and Joso's Prank aren't. Oh yeah. You're saying Robert. Yeah. In the Blackwater, there's Targaryen ship names. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, and we're like, why didn't they change these? And the conclusion we came to, it didn't say it anywhere, but it's like, oh, it's just bad sailor.
It's definitely a bad omen.
Yeah. And here we go. Danny's changing them.
I mean, maybe not bad omen. Omen's the wrong word. Superstition.
Yeah. So she renames them to Vagar, Meraxes, and Balerion.
Which I'm assuming are dragons, right?
It was the name of the dragons from the conquest.
Paint the names on their hulls in golden letters 3 feet high, Arston. I want every man who sees them to know the dragons are returned. So yeah, so these are the 3 heads of the original dragon.
We're back, baby.
She's doing some dumb stuff too, though. It's kind of a show of power, obviously, but at the same time, you're painting a big target on yourself because these dragons aren't quite big enough yet, right? Like,
and she's only got 100 people, like we said.
Yeah, and they're not sailors.
102 now.
Yeah, there are 102 people that are 100 of them are afraid of the sea, or 97 of them, whatever, are afraid of where they're about to be.
Yeah, exactly.
You're broadcasting like the dragons are returned. That shit has to be getting out.
Target here.
Yeah.
And you were just afraid these guys were following you, like trying to kill you.
I know.
Now you're trying to paint a target on your boat. Yeah.
It's just these kind of strange plays, I guess.
So badass, though. Kind of badass. She's a little girl.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought they were cool names. She's all geeked up.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I'm just saying. I guess I was just analyzing the play. That was all. I understand.
Could be better.
And now we got 2 new cats with Dany, and one of them's awesome. At least one of them's awesome. Maybe Austin's awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a big staff. I feel like it can't just be as simple as that, right? Like a dude with a walking stick.
He's a squire.
Well, Jorah does give the walking stick some clout here. Not an awful weapon.
Yeah, he did say I can crack a skull just like anything else, but still. I don't know. It's a weird weapon.
Why a stick when you can have anything you want?
What does Gandalf say when he goes in to see Theoden? You would part an old man from his walking stick, would you?
That's true. Yeah, it is. It is a good weapon if you need to get through a metal detector. You're right.
Maybe it's a magic staff. He does have a long way.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Or he could be a monk. Back to the D&D stuff here, and have like super speed, beat the shit out of somebody.
Monks are all bare hand fighters, right?
No, improvised weapons for the most part.
Which means like anything you can pick up.
Yeah, it's like not a weapon. Anything that's not actually a weapon. It's table legs, staff, broom handle, club.
All right.
Any other thoughts on this chapter, Kyle?
So I don't know where Illyria is right now, I guess is the problem, unless he's in Pentos at his house.
Yeah, he's chilling. He's too fat. He's too fat to be on the move.
Yeah, he sent them from there.
Yeah. I know, but we know that he was at King's Landing.
For a hot second in book 1.
True. That is true.
I know.
That is the last time
but I guess what I'm
though.
saying is that we know he's moving. He's mobile.
He is. He can be mobile.
As mobile as a 30
That's far
stone
shit,
person
right?
can be.
No, it's right across the Narrow Sea. They're pretty.
It's across the Narrow Sea. Yeah, you're right. But he's fat as fuck. Like
how far is the Narrow Sea?
It's not the wide
It's
sea.
narrow. It's very narrow.
Okay. Well, I guess, and some of those ships from King's Landing went all the way over to Pentos pretty much and went south, right? Tyrion sent them that way out and about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're way closer than I thought. I guess, is part of this.
Essos and Westeros, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the play here is to try and get back to Pentos, but I think the real issue she's gonna have is convincing all these people to get on these boats, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about this. I just said it not too long ago. They have no interest in the sea.
Yeah, going to the poison water, but they also know, like, we followed you. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll see how loyal they are.
I know, but I feel like that's still a big ask. Like,
they also if think about like if they're like, no, we're not going to do it, and Danny's like, okay, cool, then you're on your own. Then they're fucked because they're not going to be allowed to stay. I mean,
they're in a city though. They're not fucked.
Dothraki, you're going to be allowed to stay here. I think they're getting booted out.
Maybe some of them
and dead in the Red Waste.
I think if she's gone, I don't think they're all gone. You're
right, because we found out that there's this like poor area and there's like this like docks. They could just like chill in these docks as like homeless people for a while, at least. Get on their feet.
Pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah, the Carthene dream.
Yeah. Work in a whorehouse for a little bit. No big deal. So anyway, like they can't walk back across the desert. That can't be the play. So I think they have to get on these boats, right? Like that's my logic, at least. I also, like I said, think that they're kind of painting a target on themselves. I think they're going to run into some people in the ocean. Because these are only 2 dudes. How do they have 3 ships between 2 dudes is the other question.
Well, there's people on the boats, but like Belwas is like the guy, and he brought a squire with him.
Okay.
Which is surprising. Belwas is your envoy. But
I know, that's why I'm having a hard time.
Who shows up, picks a fight with Danny's Blood Riders, and just like talks about how badass he is. I love it.
I mean, I think they got to stop and gather more Dothraki. I think she's got to take over some Dothrakis.
You think she's ready for that?
She does have a bone to pick with a few Dothrakis.
I think she's got it.
She's got a fire breathing something to help her.
You can't build a force without doing a little bit of this, right? Like everybody else is pretty much already in a group.
Some people are for sale.
Well, I don't know what that means. You're saying,
like, I haven't heard of like a single Dothraki family living in the fucking middle of the Dothraki Sea or something by themselves that you can go recruit to be part of your group. They're all already under another warlord or whatever you want to call them. Cow.
Yeah. So you gotta go fuck up a cow to win their Khalasar, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. You gotta get by taking. It's kind of paying the what is it? The blood price?
The iron price.
The iron price. All right, so heading west, picking up cats on the way.
That's what they got to do.
That's
what got to do. Got to be done.
Makes sense.
Got to do what you got to do.
All right.
That's all I got.
Well, we'll see Kyle in the next one for Arya 10.
Whoa.
Yeah, we got another Arya, baby.
Back to Harrenhal. It's been a while since we've been there.
We'll see the rest of you guys on the spoiler section.
All right, later, nerds.
Give us a like, subscribe. Bye-bye.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle. See you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out. Now, on to the sports section for Danny 5. Jeff, any hot takes?
Actually, I do have some shit. Let's start with this one because I'm sure there's something to talk about. It's just kind of cool of where we're at in House of the Dragon and all this Aegon stuff and the prince that was promised and his song is like some fire. So it's so funny that every Targaryen, their first son is named Aegon because he's the prince that's promised. Probably the prince, and if we think that the show, right, so the king tells his heir about this dagger that has the song inlaid in it.
Yep.
So now every son is the heir, and he's not named Aegon, right? So like Rhaegar gets the prophecy from Aerys, and he's like, well, fuck, my son's gonna be the prince now. Like, I gotta name him Aegon.
Yeah, so like I was trying to like get Kyle to get up to kind of see that that's what Rhaegar was doing. I don't know if I don't think I gave him too much, but he definitely didn't pick up on that, and I feel like it was kind of clear in the chapter, right? Danny's saying like, yeah, he had a son Aegon and he had a daughter Rhaenys, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, but there was no Visenya. Like they say that there was, right? Like I think I have the quote. They say that there was no Visenya, which kind of implies that Rhaegar was trying to do the same thing, like have children with the same names of Aegon. And again, I don't know if Kyle picked up on that. And that's what he was like. I have a lot of questions, and I was like, well, I think I can answer some if you're like, who's who, like, if it was just like, are these guys sisters or brothers? Like, I can give you that, and then maybe you can piece this together. But I don't think he was picking up on that. The other,
I think he just picked up on the fact that there's a lot of Aegon Targaryens, more so that they just wanted to name it after the Conqueror than it meant something to do with the prophecy.
Yeah, and the kind of thing that I was going to say to you that was House of the Dragon related, and we'll get back right after this to the thing that you're saying, is that Dany is, when Jorah says Aegon the Conqueror was, and his sisters were the three heads, Dany recalled it was Visenya and Rhaenys, and then says that she thinks to herself that she is descendant from Aegon and Rhaenys, right, through their son Aenys the First, and their grandson King Jaehaerys the First.
Right.
King Jaehaerys the First is that old ass king in the first scene of House of the Dragon.
Right.
So Dany's.
I picked up on all this as we were reading.
I'm just saying, like, pointed out to the spoiler section for people who didn't. Like, this is again,
now,
like you're saying, like, this is, it feels like perfect timing with House of the Dragon. But I think it feels like perfect timing because I bet you George sprinkles this stuff in every future, especially from here on out. Like, George has a lot of the history figured out, I think, by this point when he's writing like the end of Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords. So now, like, I've been listening to some sort of Storm of Swords on audiobook. George is sprinkling. You'll be like picking up, and I'm afraid that you might get some stuff spoiled for you on House of the Dragon.
I mean, it's just inevitable. Like, I'm seeing it. You see shit all the
Luckily,
time.
we're going through this very slowly, but we are going to be, like, we'll be halfway through Storm of Swords in 2 years, and that's when the next one gets coming out. Who knows?
Let me just spoiler. I know Rhaenyra dies.
It's 150 years ago. They all die.
Maybe she doesn't lose, but she dies in this thing.
The thing is, they all die. Maybe you think more is spoiled for you than is. You know how she dies. That's what's spoiled for you. But I can tell there's a lot of surprises for you along the way.
Well, good. I hope I am, because I'm mad that Joffrey ruined it.
We're completely off topic. This should be in a House of the Dragon podcast, but we're normally trying to get through those because it's 11 o'clock at night. I want to pat myself on the back. You had said something like earlier, like, oh, I saw this thing. I thought this weird TikTok about Harwin and Rhaenyra, and I'm like, oh yeah, people think that like they'd be like a good. I played it off, and I didn't spoil it.
I was just waiting. I was waiting for it. There was fan art. Why would there be fan art if it wasn't a thing?
But I didn't spoil it, and at least in the last episode that we recorded, what's on record is you're like, now it makes sense. In the episode you had said now it makes sense, as if like you didn't expect it back then. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back for not spoiling that.
There was two trains of thought. Was that they're actually. Well, like 2 episodes ago, it was like, wow, she's going to marry this guy. Like, that doesn't make sense. Where does Harwin fit in on this? And then is it just like fiction? Like, maybe in the story, like Harwin really liked her and she kind of liked him, but she had to do this thing. So they never actually got together.
Yeah.
But it was a possibility. So people just like ran with it and made fan art.
I think anything that people had, any fan art of those two together pre-episode 6 was all people who had read Fire and Blood and were spoiling you, right? Like, they might have been trying to be like, oh, this isn't a spoiler. Wouldn't it be so cool if these two were together? They read Fire and fucking Blood. Nobody, there was like two half-second scenes of Harwin total.
I'm saying the fan art could have been people that did fan art just from reading Fire and Blood. It might not have had to be.
I know. I'm just saying, like, in general, I get pissed because I've seen non-spoiler like reviews or breakdowns of the episode where it's like, oh, and then like of episode 5, right? And it's like, oh, and then we see Harwin and Rhaenyra are dancing here. What could that mean for the next episode? Moving on. And I'm like, well, most people would never realize like what that is, and like the fact that you pointed that out. Yeah.
Why can't they just dance?
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like some people lead into some of that shit where I don't know. I'm experienced at this point. 150 episodes of fucking taking spoilers off the shoulder, but.
All right, so so let's just get on to the Fagon of it all. Is it like
so we didn't mention this in the podcast. We were kind of skipping around stuff. We didn't mention this in the not spoiler. The Mummer's Dragon, I think, is a big thing here because, like what we're saying, there's a part where Dany is like talking about like, oh, the House of the Undying stuff, and Jorah says, "A dead man in the prow of a ship, a blue rose, a banquet of blood. What does any of it mean, Khaleesi? A Mummer's Dragon, you said. What is a Mummer's Dragon, pray?" And she says, is a dragon on poles that mummers use to give heroes something to fight. And then Jorah immediately goes to the Song of Ice and Fire and then talking about Aegon. Mm-hmm. So like it literally goes from Mummer's Dragon to the Aegon talk.
It's Fagon. He's fake. Aegon's dead.
Like the big theory of like what does the Mummer's Dragon mean? It's that the Aegon we know is fake. And here in this chapter, we literally get to talk of the Mummer's Dragon, transitions into the Rhaegar Aegon talk, which like they're back to back.
Right. I know Aegon is Jon Snow.
I think it's cooler if Aegon is the real Aegon. He was never, and Varys did do a baby swap. I think that's way cooler, but I think it makes way more sense that he's Fagon. And again, the reason I feel like the only reason I think it's cooler is because burned. At this point it's the minority opinion. You know what I mean? Like most people think Fagon is real. Most people think Aegon is fake. So I think that is the reason. I'm just like I'm like a hipster. I'm like a Game of Thrones hipster.
I'm not going to be mad if Aegon is actually Aegon. Now I'm just really curious of where the Dane of it comes in Jon's storyline. Where does it all fit?
So this is totally off topic. Our buddy Ace is reading Game of Thrones again. House and Blood's got him all fired. House of the Dragons got him all excited. And he had left off like in the middle of Storm of Swords. I don't know how you get bored in the middle of Storm of Swords, but he texted me today. He's like, dude, the chapter that I started back up with Sword of Swords is a bombshell. And I'm like, what? And he's like, Arya's talking to Edric Dane. She's like with like the Brotherhood without banners, and she's talking to one of the Dane boys who's named after Ned, and he's talking about like, oh, me and Jon Snow had the same wet nurse, and like talking about like basically Jon was a baby in Dorne, which is the first we ever hear of that, which really tends to be like, okay, who's Jon's mom? Well, as a baby, he's in Dorne, so his mom's probably around Dorne, and then we hear Ned, Lyanna, bed of blood. That's where a lot of this theory comes from, right? Like the whole R plus L equals J. I'm gonna say if there's two chapters that kind of make that theory, it's the one that our buddy just read and the Ned dream in Game of Thrones, where he's like Lyanna, bed of blood. So I know my sister died in a bed of blood in Dorne, and then Jon Snow had a wet nurse in Dorne. It implies like Lyanna had a baby. Where's that baby is the thought from Game of Thrones if you're really thinking about it.
Why was the Dane kid why was Edric Dane in Dorne too?
Well, Starfall's in Dorne. That's where House Dane is.
Oh, really? I thought it was...
it's an island off the coast of Dorne, but I think it's definitely a Dornish house. Like, they're sworn to the Martells.
Gotcha.
For sure. So that's like... And Ned, after the Tower of Joy thing, he takes Arthur Dane's sword back to Starfall, and then that's when Ashara Dane apparently loses her baby and kills herself. Right? Like, a lot of weird stuff's going on around this time, and like, the only person that we ever kind of talked to about it is Edric Dane. Like,
who was a baby and doesn't know shit. So
yeah, totally off topic. What we doing? The Mummer's Dragon, yeah. So I'll go to a short one. The ships. One of the reasons I want to go through the ships. One of these ships shows up later. Maybe more. One that I remembered.
I'm sure they're the ones that captured Tyrion and the other one.
The Slow-Eyed Maid, which I think here it just says is too small. But what happens is when Davos in Dance of Dragons, dude, that's what like Clash of Kings and Dance of Dragons, this ship isn't mentioned for literally 2,000 pages and it shows up again. Davos is in the Three Sisters, which is like these like little islands kind of in the north near White Harbor. And they say that a lot of times they have like these big jagged rock spires and they put fake lights on them to make ships
to have people crash into them.
And they just steal all their shit. And I think it's implied that that's what happens to the Slow-Eyed Maid there. Maybe not, because they get news about the dragons from the Slow-Eyed Maid as well. So maybe they actually did go into port, and then on the way out they did that to him or something like that. I'm not sure. The Slow-Eyed Maid was definitely in the Three Sisters where Davos was, and they get like news of, he hears of like dragons, I think, and I think that the ship basically wrecked and they stole all their shit. But I'm not 100% on that part.
Okay. I definitely want to pick up on that. All right, let's talk about glass candles.
Glass candles.
Kyle asked what it was.
I didn't even ask what it was. I brought it up. He said light bulbs.
He said his glass candle's a light bulb.
And we skimmed over it, but I have thought like I wonder if glass candle is like an iPhone. Because what we know of glass candles is like what lets you talk to people over long distances. It's more dream related, so I don't think it's an iPhone. But like when I was on the whole, like, could this be sci-fi? Then what is the glass candle? I was kind of thinking what Kyle is, where it's like, how do you light these glass candles? All of a sudden, like electricity's, maybe they do have like an artifact of like light bulbs and electricity.
Are you thinking that this is a fucking your other book?
That's I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, that's a different book series that kind of has stuff like that.
And just like the magic, is the magic actually getting stronger?
So I think this is at least we've heard it twice. I mentioned the other one. Okay, he says half a year. She says half a year gone. This might have been a spoiler for Kyle that I dropped on him. He'll never notice it though. What Quay says is half a year gone. That man could scarcely wake fire from dragon glass. So we don't know that a glass candle is dragon glass, but it's kind of like assumed in the fandom that
I didn't know like, glass candles were dragon glass.
A glass candle is just like obsidian. I think Sam says that I think it's known. I think we know that. I think Sam basically when he gets to the Citadel, it's like a big spire. Sense. It's basically a tall, like 4 foot, long, basically dragon glass dagger is kind of what it is.
Yeah,
but sense. Also. I think we've also heard of this, and I was looking it up. Doesn't Lewin say something to Bran about him having to, when he earns his Valyrian Steel Link?
I don't know.
He definitely has already done, he says this at some point that like to earn your Valyrian Steel Link, you have to basically go into a room overnight, and try and light a glass candle. I know that's true, and I don't know how I would know that's true if it wasn't for Lewin telling Bran when he tells him about his Valyrian Steel Link. So I think this is like the third time we've heard about glass candles. Maybe this is actually the first time it's actually called a glass candle, though. I could have sworn, though, that Lewin said it to Brad, but I might be wrong. So, but yeah, glass candles, definitely cool.
Jorah says to go further east. Is he scheming her?
There's not much further east. We pretty much a shy is all we got further east.
What's his play there?
It's
because he knows that it's a globe and it's just quicker there. He can go right to the Iron Islands because it's a flat. Is it a flatland or is it a globe? What's east of Essos?
Westeros.
Some
people might disagree, but there might be something. Maybe there's something in the middle that we don't know about. But
all right, so
I think that one thing is Kyle didn't pick up on Barristan, and I think he's going to before the reveal happens because he gets super suspicious.
Yeah, there was a couple of huge hints.
I think he's suspicious in this chapter.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, one.
He knows Jorah is super weird.
He knows Jorah, right? And he saw him fight.
Like, there's plenty of reasons he knows Jorah. Like Illyrio told him, but then when I was like, wait, but he says he saw Jorah fight, and Kyle didn't. He
didn't say anything about that.
Like
the Illyrio of it didn't like. Sure, maybe he would have said like, oh,
that explains some of it. That's a good thought by Kyle. But.
It's not a bad thought, especially for someone who's not thinking of anything weird.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing, and you actually mentioned this, I think. Was that, and maybe it was a question.
You can't spell Barristan without Arston?
No, not at all. The thing was, and this might be House of Dragon-y, was that he was speaking Valyrian.
Yeah, this is kind of like a problem I have with House of the Dragon. Like, this sets the precedent that Kingsguard and the Council of, like what? Again, I don't know anything about history, so correct me if I'm wrong, leave comments, tell us in the Discord. But my understanding is, like, I think like in like the royal court in England, like the royals spoke French as like a way to be like, we're better than like the commoners who don't. It's like a thing where like rich people just spend time on stuff, like just like do stuff that just like shows that they're wasting time, right? Like in our current culture, tan people are like more attractive because it kind of shows that you have time to do leisure activities. You have time to like go spend time in the sun and go to the beach and stuff like that. Like I think in psychology, that's why people find tan people more attractive nowadays. Where in the past, being tan was less attractive because that meant you were worked
out
outside.
In the sun working.
Exactly. So like, I think it's one of those things.
Okay. Whatever. So is there a difference between High Valyrian and just common Valyrian? Has to be, right? Because
that's a good question. I don't know. I thought that the only language I know is High Valyrian. Like if you're trying to learn it online, you can learn High Valyrian. I don't think you can learn Common.
So I asked that because I saw interview with Millie, and she's like, "Oh, we speak High Valyrian," and not saying like that there is a Low Valyrian, but if there is a High Valyrian, my assumption is that there's a common or tongue of Valyrian, which is still being spoken Essos here.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. Like maybe High Valyrian is the language. You're saying High Valyrian would be the language they speak in like the Valyrian court, and Low Valyrian is the language that everybody else speaks.
Yeah, which I don't know. Whatever.
So what I'm saying is theoretically, if George modeled this after England medieval history, which it seems like he fucking did, everything else is pretty much the exact same, then maybe it seems like at least in the books, Valyrian was like the court language that the people who were in court all the time were expected to know. if for no other reason than just to be, if somebody else was in the room, to be like, we're better than you, we have time to learn this extra language that you don't have time to learn. Maybe that's not the right way to think about it. I don't know. That's kind of how I think about it. But I don't mind what they did in House of the Dragon because it gives like certain characters like a secret language when really everyone in the show would know that language.
Let's just talk about what it really means for Barristan, is that he is a Westerosi squire knight type of thing, which who knows Valyrian? Like, why would he know Valyrian? Because he's hung around Targaryens, the only family that speak Valyrian.
That's a great point. So if like you're saying like what Kyle could be putting
could
together,
have,
like, why would a Westerosi knight not know Valyrian? Like those two things don't go together, period. Right. What I'm going to propose to you is like how you, because you probably never thought about this before, but like going forward, is there a time where people are speaking Valyrian that is like impactful for the story, that now that Barristan knows what's going on is like kind of interesting? And I'm going to feed it to you if you don't get it, but Dany's next stop, right? Where does Dany go next?
So I actually don't remember. I'm curious of why they don't get the Pentos. Like, what do they stop to get soldiers? Like
Jorah convinces her to go by the Unsullied.
The Unsullied.
Exactly.
So
but when they get there, she has this whole thing, just like in the show, where the guy's speaking Valyrian and Missandei is translating, and she's pretending she doesn't. She's
understanding, and Barristan's understanding too,
as well. But she makes note that he's like tapping his staff, like when he says something like, "Oh, we make them slaughter babies," like Barristan like starts tapping his staff because like he's pissed off and like
because he's angry,
and he can't. But that's how he controls his anger. It's like a little, like a little tick.
That's curious. I definitely did not pick up on that the first time I read it.
But it's interesting that like Barristan understands like the Valyrian, so he's like, you know what I mean? It's I think it's just cool. And I thought when I read it, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense because there's a huge point in House of Dragon that they're the only ones. If Barristan knows it, and he was like at the dying of the Targaryens, everyone would fucking know it back in these days.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he just took a little bit more like into it, but you don't think maesters are out there studying it and whatnot for like some kind of ring or something like that? I don't know.
Oh, for sure. Like,
some link.
Yeah. But I doubt there's many people in Westeros who speak Valyrian, like you're saying.
The Belwas of the character is weird. Like, why Belwas?
That's the other thing, and I kind of pointed out to Kyle. I was like, he's a horrible envoy. Clearly, what's happening here is Illyrio is sending Barristan to Dany. It's like the reverse. Like Belwas is Barristan's squire, basically.
Right, and I get like for the protection of like your identity, you're pretending to be a squire. But Belwas, like, where the fuck was Belwas? Doing that, find out.
It's a horrible cover, but again, I think it's a horrible cover on purpose so that the reader has a chance to be like, what the fuck?
Why is this going on?
Send this big idiot, and then like over time you're like, why is this big idiot in charge when Arstan Whitebeard is telling stories about like having hung out with Rhaegar? Like in the next chapter, I think in like the first chapter of Storm of Swords, Barristan like tells a story about like being with Rhaegar. Yeah. And if Kyle doesn't pick up on like what the fuck is going on with this dude, then he's not
something's
like,
wrong.
We need to find a new.
And it's funny because Kyle was like, where is Barristan? Like he said that recently.
Yeah, he said that recently. Yeah. Last thing I had, you probably don't remember this. The ships that she renames to the dragons, one of them is called Jogo's Prank, and I'm pretty sure when she gets to Astapor, maybe not Astapor, it might be one of the other cities, either like Marine or Yunkai. At one point, they need like siege engines or like a battering ram, and they take apart the ships to turn them into like siege engines because there's no wood around because they're like basically in the middle of the desert. So they take about the ships, turn them into like a battering ram, and they end up turning Jozo's Prank, the ship that was Jozo's Prank, which I think gets renamed to Meraxes. They end up turning that ship into a battering ram, and because it used to be called Jogo's Prank, now they call it Jogo's Cock, I think, because they're like ramming it and they're like ramming it into the gate. I haven't read these recently, but I'm pretty sure there's a battering ram at some point named Jogo's Cock, and it all stems from here. At this point, it's starting to click together. Yeah, there's a boat. I know the battering ram was made out of a boat. Here, there's a boat named Jogo's Prank, so I'm assuming that's an assumption by me that I haven't checked up on, but yeah. So I think these boats do, and it kind of, maybe you can tell me. I think it's actually from history. You're a history guy. My high school football coach, we're at this fucking away game. It was like an hour and a half bus ride. Everybody was like asleep. It was one of those things where like
he told you to burn the ships.
He said to burn the ships. Exactly. There was like this army in
him and every other football coach in the history. But that's
the Danny, right? That's what they do with these ships. They burn the ships. They're like, we're turning them into battering rams. We're not leaving. We're winning this war or else. That's kind of what Danny does. They don't burn them, but they convert them.
I think the story you're talking about is like they either go home or they either go home because they're going to freeze to death, or they burn the ships for fire and continue to fight. So
I think the story my coach told me was like the army showed up on the shores of like they're ready for battle, and like as soon as all the army got off the boat, the commanders burned the ships and like, we're not fucking going home.
Yeah, I'm sure
the only way we're going home is if we win this battle and take their ships.
I'm sure there's been a lot of
yeah, and who knows if my coach was being historically accurate.
I mean, I'm sure it's been construed. The one I've heard is like they were gonna freeze if they didn't start a fire. They had no wood, so it was like we can either burn the ships or go home.
Like you can either go home or commit to this endeavor. Yeah, gotcha.
All right. The jeweler with the deal, was that actually a Pyatt pre-assassin, or do you think someone else is sending assassins now too?
So the thing is, like a sorrowful man, who would send a sorrowful man to kill Danny? The only person I can think of is Pyatt.
Yeah.
I think the sorrowful men are like the faceless men. They're like the knockoff brand faceless men, especially in like when you're this far east, like you can't get to Bravos and back in time. So fuck, I'll pay the assassin clan of this city. So my guess is it was Pyatt trying to kill Danny. But like to your point, like this is the second time someone's tried to assassinate.
Not Zaro?
I don't think Zaro, because Zaro comes back.
The dragons are guarded by one guy right now.
Well, this is also something that happened. That's a good point. But this is something that happens in the books, not the show. Zaro comes back later. But I guess that doesn't mean that he can't be trying to do this now. That makes a ton of sense. I never thought about that. Zaro almost makes more sense than Pyatt, because like you're saying, what you're claiming is Zaro sent the sorrowful men so that Danny would die. Then all he has to do is kill Aggo, who's the only person left guarding the dragons, and now he has 3 dragons. The reason I didn't think about, the reason I'm going to say that I didn't think about this is because in my mind, Zaro shows back up. He shows up Marine at least once, if not twice.
Yeah.
And in the books, in the show, he definitely doesn't, because the show is completely different here. He's locked away with Jikwi or Daria,
the white girl. Yeah,
Daria, I think. Yeah,
the fake handmaid.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I was just curious of like if you had theories on. I mean, I think the obvious one is Pyatt. I was just wondering if like Zaro or the 13 or just anybody else wanted to kill her.
I actually have heard one theory that I wanted to bring up here was that not about who sent this. I've always just assumed it was Pyatt because she pissed him off. They're in the city. If Pyatt wanted to get back at her, it's a good sorrowful man would be a good choice. But there's theories that Barristan's going to switch sides to support Aegon because he's going to believe he's the real Aegon, and he's going to be like, "Fuck, I served Aerys and Rhaegar, so
it's my duty to." Don't you think doesn't Illyrio know about Aegon though? Like,
true.
Wouldn't he have given him that knowledge? Like, hey.
Well, maybe when the time comes, he pokes him. Maybe Illyrio is the one that's like, hey, he's actually the one you should be serving. That's a really good point. But I feel like for some reason the books at this point, either George hadn't. If I'm saying George hadn't thought of Aegon, then what I'm saying doesn't make sense because I'm saying he's thought of Aegon by now. But it's like, it kind of doesn't make sense why Illyrio ever supports Danny, right? If Aegon is always the plan,
unless he supports the marriage of the two. I mean, but
him marrying Drogo is not. Him marrying Danny to Drogo is not.
Yeah, that doesn't help that.
Maybe it's just like get Drogo on our side, start a war,
kill Drogo.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense.
Who knows? I don't know. It's the Illyrio of it is goofy because he might have just told like, "Hey, Barristan, like go find Danny," and like he could have kept Aegon a secret because he's kept it a secret kind of for now. But
yeah, one of the reasons that people think that Barristan is going to switch sides is because there's a kind of a big Barristan parallel with another Kingsguard we know from history who switches sides.
Kristen
Sir
Cole.
Christian Cole. And there's some of the parallels I can't tell you because we don't know yet, but a few of them are they're both from the Dornish Marches, right? Like Swan is in the Dornish Marches, Cole's in the Dornish, like he's from the Dornish Marches. They're both in the same area, and they're both joined the Kingsguard at 23, and potentially they both switch sides. There's at least two other
Christian
parallels that I can't tell you about them because they haven't happened. It hasn't happened in House of the Dragon, so I'll leave it there.
All right, let me know when they come up.
But there's some thoughts that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's like people. When you look up if you were to look
Turncloak,
Turncloak joins Aegon theory, a lot of the evidence would be, he's parallel to Christian who does the same thing.
Who's a Turncloak?
I guess the idea, the thing is that everyone knows Christian switches sides because of like he got spurned, and no one assumes Barristan got spurned by Dany. Like he's not trying to fuck Dany.
Yeah, he's an old man. All right, I'm good.
Yep, I'm good as well.
All right, bye guys. Thanks for listening.
Give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. We haven't said that in a while. Those help. If you're in the Discord, you're a real one.
You're a real one for sure.
Join the Discord. The thing is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, we don't give shout outs to Discord in the House of the Dragon episodes. And we do that on purpose because we don't want those. Those get so many fucking views from the fake fans. You know what I'm talking about?
We need the real ones.
If you're listening to this, you're a real one. Join the Discord. You know what I'm talking about? We'll see you guys in the next one for Aria 10. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.